Hey, everybody, this is Carl White broadcasting from the secret headquarters here at the Mortgage Marketing Animals, and you're listening to Loan Officer Freedom, #1 podcast in the world today. But I have to say for loan officers, because last I looked, what's his name? Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan actually has the #1 podcast, but Joe Rogan, there can only be one, and I'm coming after you. So we're just putting that out there. So, hey, if you haven't noticed already, I've got a dear friend of mine, super smart guy. Always love calling him to bounce ideas back and forth. And man, I've swiped some of his best ideas and claimed them as my own shamelessly. So the ever so talented and lovely Chris Sorensen out of PRMG. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing well. And I have to say, I've done the exact same thing, right? What do they say? Good artists imitate, great artists steal. Leonardo da Vinci.
I like that. Yeah. So bands cover songs. I just cover your sayings, and that seems like that works well for me. So Chris, somebody, I think a lot of people that's listening know who you are, but just in case they don't, where do you work at? What's your title, and kind of what do you do?
Well, my official title is a long one, but I will say I'm the Senior Vice President in charge of retail production for PRMG. And I'm bragging point here, shameless plug. I think we were just ranked as the 17th largest privately held lender in America. So we're proud of that fact.
Good for you, man.
33 years in the business. I'm beginning to get long in the tooth, Carl. But yeah, I started as a real estate agent and then mortgage professional. And anyway, here I am, 3 jobs in 33 years.
So wait, you've been 33 years. So, and I'm not saying this to be funny or anything, dude. You look not old enough. And I'm not saying that to be funny or complimenting. Like literally, I'm shocked to hear that. I would have guessed 20.
No, well, I'm 57. I'll be 58 in August. So August 26th, if anybody wants to send me a birthday greeting. But November of 87 is when I joined a company called Realty World Orange, and then was there only for a couple months before I got recruited to a company called First Team Real Estate in Anaheim Hills. Well, they were in Southern California, but worked in that Anaheim Hills office. And Cam Mirage, the owner, wound me up and let me go. When you're young and you don't know any better, and somebody says, go out and make 100 calls every day, you're like, all right. And all of a sudden you become the highest producer in the office just because you didn't know any better.
You don't know any better. Yeah, you don't know any better. So, which by the way, is not bad advice. You know, we talk about all these tricks and strategies here on the podcast. And frankly, if we said, you know what, call 100 people, it'd be hard to screw that up.
Pretty much. And that was kind of the message. And that was also something that, there was a coach at the time, who'll go unnamed, but there was a coach at the time, obviously, that was very inexpensive to see at that time. And even then I couldn't afford it when I first got in the business, but one of his students had written down a script. And so I just followed the script, and my manager said, Chris, if you will talk to 33 people a day, every day, 5 days a week, 11 months out of the year, and he kind of broke it down and backed into an income. He says, you're going to make this much money. And I actually exceeded that goal, of course. And, one of the things, and not to make this a mutual love fest, but one of the things that I admire most about you is your consistency. You teach and you coach, but all somebody has to do is just monitor your consistency in your actions. And that by itself reveals why you're so successful. And if they mirrored those actions, they too would enjoy great success. So there's really no secrets. It's just a matter of, and I like to say, and not to be overly verbose or dominate, but I like to say, compared to what? I oftentimes refer to my stepson who went through we'll say specialized training and succeeded with a very specialized group in the Navy. And I watched what he did as a very young person. And then when people say, well, calling a whole bunch of realtors and calling bars every single day is really a grind. It's difficult. And I'm like, okay, compared to what? When you watch what some of these young people will do to be able to protect our freedoms, making 100 calls a day becomes pretty simplified.
Man, I like that. I tell this story. I don't know if you've heard it. I've probably told on the podcast 2 or 3 times, where I was sitting out in the parking lot of my office one day, sitting in my vehicle, put my hands on my head, going, man, this is just really hard sometimes. And I look up and I see some dudes working up on a roof in Florida in July. Literally, it's called tar mopping. It's where you get like a kitchen mop, you put it in tar and you spread it across a flat roof. freaking hot work. I did it one summer in high school, and tars popping on you and stinging you and mosquitoes and sunburn and just god awful. And I heard God say, if you want hard, I got hard for you, and I can make that happen for you, Carl, if you'd like to, and
You
it
know
put it in
what?
perspective.
Amen. And again, so many of our top producers, including people like you and I, will have things in common. And it oftentimes will be just those things. We have that commitment to excellence. We have that commitment to consistency. And I often joke, very similar story, that, I'm very careful not to complain about anything for fear that God will give me something to complain about. So
Yeah.
And it's true. I remember knocking on doors one summer day, and I was, again, early in my career. I'm knocking on doors. I'm sweating. It's over 100 degrees. And I literally went in my car, turned on the air conditioning. And I'm not too ashamed to say at this point in my life that I literally started to well up with tears because of my frustration, because I was brand new in the business and struggling. And Richie, my oldest son, he's 29, but he was just born and not too long. And this is when I switched from real estate to lending, and I was kind of struggling making that switch. And I remember thinking to myself, hey, if somebody, and this is very dramatic, but we all have to play mind games at times, but if somebody were to grab my son and say, you need to bring in extra loans or else, would I do it? And of course, the answer is an unequivocal yes, I would. And so I sucked it up, got out of the car, and kept knocking on doors. And of course, the rest is history. But I look at life, and especially in sales, it's not a matter of can we do something, Carl? It's will we do something? And people just have to have that will. And if they'll do it, and something else is also important. I believe that when you're doing it for yourself, it's not sustainable as much as it is when you're doing it for others. And so I've often said, I've coined the phrase, serve for success. For if you serve others, you'll be given the opportunity to grow that and expand that, in my personal belief system, by our Creator. So I just get up every morning and say, my job is to serve the people that have aligned themselves with me. I've got a moral duty to take care of them because they've said, I want to work with Chris. Well, I got to deliver every day. And then I need to make sure that they have the ability to serve their realtor referral partners and the public by making things easy. And that's what drives me every single day. And hopefully it drives the bulk of the people that are aligned here at PRMG.
That reminds me of a story. One thing that really happened probably about, boy, time flies, probably 15 years ago or so. A friend of mine died, right? And got cancer, died. Real tragic story. And his wife just absolutely adored him, right? Just absolutely adored him until he died and left his family in a financial pickle.
Yikes.
Right. Yeah. And it was, and man, I hope it's okay to share this story. We might edit this out. But I remember watching that, and she had a right to be bitter. Like, if I can be perfectly honest, she had every bit of right to, because here he had years to make something happen, and got sick tragically, died tragically, but as tragically, now his wife had two daughters and who wanted to go to college, and they couldn't afford to make that. She couldn't afford to make that happen, or was desperately trying to find a way.
Sure.
And frankly, if he would have just picked up the phone and made some phone calls, I thought this later on, and it's easy to judge somebody else rather than myself, right? So I don't want to be uncool about this, but when I saw that, I remember thinking, I'll be darned, because you and I are both motorcycle enthusiasts. It's one of the many things that we have in common. And when that happened, I thought, what happens if I wrap myself around a tree today? Have I left my family in that same situation? I'm not judging him for doing that, because he didn't know he's going to get sick.
Of course.
It was a lesson to me. Hell, none of us ever know. And maybe this is a morbid thing to be talking about, but that really motivated me, that I thought, I'm going to get on the stick, that God forbid I wrap myself around a tree or a piano falls on my head and I leave my family in a pickle, because he didn't have the advantage of having it happen to somebody to learn from it. I did. So now he didn't know, but now I know, right? Now I'm responsible for this. So a big motivating factor for me was making sure that if something happened to me, and whether I got injured or sick or whatever, that my son could still go to engineering school, my daughter could still go to medical school, and my wife wouldn't have to clean floors for a living. Not that there's anything wrong with cleaning floors,
But you
but
want to have
just
those options. I understand.
I wanted to have those options. And so that's a great point. Hey, so what we're talking about here today is I thought we'd talk about it. We're already halfway there, it sounds like. It's kind of like what's working now that we see this reset or what at least feels like a reset in the industry today. And a lot of people are going, well, what do I do now? And what do I do now? And I thought that's kind of what we'd talk about here for a little bit. Are we seeing a reset to something abnormal, or is it just a reset back to normal, or how do you see that?
Well, of course, I mean, you and I both know that it's a reset back to normal. I mean, look at when you and I first got started in the business, I mean, $500 billion worth of production was phenomenal. Today, we're doing 2.5 trillion. Okay. And so because we just broke all records over in 2020 and 2021, things became relatively easy and people became, and again, this is not an attack, but people became somewhat complacent or lazy. Their muscle memory obviously just isn't there. And so, and some people are just new enough in the business where they just kind of expected this is going to continue. But look, we're in a phenomenal market. There will be a cleansing. There is going to be people who obviously do not have that inner drive, who may make way for people that do. But if you have that inner drive and you do recognize just how blessed we are to be selling other people's money for a living.
I've never thought of it that way. I like that.
Yeah, I'm selling other people's money for a living and they're paying me to do this. Why? I mean, look, I mean, the loan officers that are good at what they do and are students of the business and never forget that they have to be an expert. Experts are back in vogue. And if you can combine that expertise of knowing your underwriting guidelines, along with that tenacity that comes with getting up and making those calls every single day, you can't help but succeed. And look, you're a phenomenal coach, but you're not the only one out there. But you know what you have in common with all the coaches that I talk to, and I've probably talked to a half a dozen nationally known coaches in the last 30 days, just getting different opinions on things, including you. The one common denominator is they're saying they're telling all their people, and they're charging them thousands of dollars to do so. But they're telling all their people, make your calls. And so I joke, not that, you're probably this is part you may don't want to edit out, but I tell people, listen, you can pay thousands of dollars or you can just make your phone calls. It's up to you. Now, of course, that's being silly. There's more to it than that. And there's a whole lot that goes into that. But the base foundation, your baseline needs to be get up, serve for success, make those phone calls, let people know that you're here to serve them, remind them what you do for a living, and then use the marketing techniques that you promote as a way of expanding what you're doing. And if I can make a plug, not for PRMG, but just for CRMs in general are the difference between somebody being a loan hack and being a business owner. I want everybody that listens to me to say, I want to build my legacy. And the only way to build your legacy is to act like the CEO of a Fortune 100 corporation and recognize that you cannot manage that which you fail to measure. And if you're not inputting data religiously in your CRM, you're setting yourself up for long-term failure.
What do you guys use for CRM? Do you have a proprietary?
We don't have a proprietary one. I mean, we were longtime customers of Surefire. I'm not a big fan of Black Knight taking them over, but that's just personal opinion. So we've switched over to Total Expert. There's a lot of great ones. We've just integrated the hell out of our vendor relationships with Total Expert. So literally, I mean, the value proposition, we each have our value propositions in our spaces, right? The value proposition today, in my opinion, is we've got to teach people that speed to lead means everything, and you've got to get leads into the inbox of the loan officer's email. But the loan officers have to recognize that if they don't respond immediately, that the chances of conversion drops precipitously. And so everything about today, if you're not going to make those in addition to making the proactive calls, you've got to be uber responsive. And that means you've got to control your business, because if you don't control it, it will control you. And so my thought process is be proactive, set expectations with your borrowers and your referral partners, then go out and do your daily disciplines, and then come back and tell people what you got accomplished or didn't get accomplished, as the case may be. But my attitude is, if you're returning phone calls, you're failing your referral partners. If you're making calls, you're succeeding. If I was a real estate agent, the last thing I wanted to do was to have to chase you down to find out what's happened to the referral that I gave you. I resented it because I'm busting my ass and sweating my ass off, not busting my backside, knocking on doors. The last thing I want is to say, hey, I'm trying to track you down and the person's over playing golf or doing something else. Oh yeah, let me have my process get back. It's like, you know what? I don't need this. And so I always tell still real estate agents, look, if you're having to hire an assistant to maintain your records of what's happening with your loans, I may not be the right loan officer, but you definitely have the wrong one. A loan officer should proactively communicate, period, end of story. That's greatness right there.
Yeah, that's what on what we've always recommended is make those outbound update phone calls, and we actually call it a just ask call to remind. We're not really doing it for the update purposes. That's kind of the Trojan horse we're riding in on.
Sure,
it's really a reason to ask for more referrals on that and doing it once a week. The interesting thing we found out about doing that is I used to get paralyzed when I did my update calls, and people might have heard me say this before, but I used to get paralyzed because I'd have so many deals coming in, which anything north of probably 4 would qualify as so many for me, that I wouldn't know what was going on with the Jones file because I just couldn't keep up with them all. And sure. I think I finished up somewhere around, my best month ever was 72 loans of personal production. I probably averaged about high 40s, low 50s, somewhere in that neighborhood. But anything north of 4, I didn't know what was going on. And I found out all they really want to know is that we're having a smooth and flawless on-time closing. And as long as I gave, hey, we're still on track for a smooth and on-time, flawless closing, man, they're good to go. And I'll tell you, man, that it's funny you bring this up. If you was to ask me, with my experience, the loan officers that are making at least $1 million W-2 income, I would say virtually all of them will report that one set of calls, the Tuesday update asking for more business calls, is responsible for more of next month's loans than any other one thing.
I couldn't agree more. And again, even it doesn't have to be you personally. When you get to be the level of production, of course, that you're at, you have to automate systems, you have to gain efficiency, and your team obviously has to help you communicate.
Yeah.
But the baseline message is still, don't force your referral partners to have to chase you or your teammates down to get updates. Make sure you inform them what's going on. Be in control, set expectations properly.
What would you say? So we both agree that doing these update calls, boy, it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat them. And again, I don't want our listeners, I don't want you to call them update calls. I want you to call them asking calls, because the real purpose is asking for the business. Never forget that. What else? Like I know you guys got some monster producers over at PRMG. Every time I hang out with you guys, I mean, there's and you're real humble, and I appreciate that and honor that. But as well as I do, you guys got some monsters over there. What is there any other activity, or is it specifically the phone calls, or which phone calls? Like if somebody was to call you up and say, "Hey, man, what should I do?" What would you tell that person to do, Chris?
Well, depending on what level, right? So there's always that top 1%, which they figured out and they have a game plan and they're executing religiously every single day. If I think about a couple of our top 1%ers, in fact, I was just talking to one this morning. He, in this case, is just always on the phone to his past clients, and he does some marketing to get new clients, but him and his team are just always on the phone all day and then converting very quickly. Another one who's more old school here in California, she's a phenom. I mean, wife, mother, top producer, 3 teammates, and just is very religious about making sure that all of her real estate referral partners hear from her every single day. So again, it's just making those calls and outbound calls as opposed to always reacting. She is proactive in her communication. But if we look at the bulk of the loan officers at PRMG or in the industry in general, those that are struggling the most, they keep themselves busy doing busy work, but they're non-money making activities. That my dad had a line, and it's a little bit crass, but he was direct, and he said, "Son," I'll never forget it. I was young in my teens, and he said, "Son, there's only one person on this planet that gives a rat's backside how hard you're working. He goes, that's your mother. The rest of us only care about results. Mm. And that resonated with me because at the end of the day, it's what's up on the scoreboard that matters. And so I had no choice but to choose to make my daily disciplines money-making activities. So for me, it was, again, when I was both in real estate as well as in loans, how many borrowers, and then when the loans, how many buyers or sellers as a real estate agent, and then in the lending side, it was how many borrowers, past and present, as well as referral partners, can I talk to in any given day? And when I was younger and starting out, it was 5-6 hours a day that I was doing that. As I became, probably like you, as I became higher producing, I did cut back on that. And I kind of veered off towards builder business, which was a different animal, but it's dumb luck that I fell into that. And then it just kind of exploded because, again, if you're proactive in your communication like builders require, you're going to be a godsend to them. But yeah, I would say my bottom line advice is pick up the phone and start calling everybody that you know, and then switch and then start calling every realtor that you can find and just remind them of what you do for a living and that you would really like their help in being able to serve in the field that you've chosen. And when someone objects, listen, if somebody objects, that's a good thing. That just means they're willing to engage you. If somebody hangs up on the phone, so be it. It's not about you. They're just maybe having a bad day or they're busy, but never take it personal because you will have those times when you talk to somebody. In fact, can I tell you a quick little story for 30 seconds?
We got plenty of time.
So again, sometimes I go back to my early stages of my career to remind myself of what to do today. And again, I tell this story sometimes. My old team, if my teammates are hearing this right now, they're gonna be like, I have to hear this again. But I went to my mom and borrowed money because I was new in the business and I was broke and I needed to pay my share of the rent. And I did this 2 months in a row. And the third month, I happened to go to my mom. My dad was home early, which was never the occurrence, but my dad was home early and he said, I understand you've been borrowing money behind my back from your mother. Yes, sir. And he said, listen here, you little SOB. And he spelled it out. He said, unless and until you're willing to work 7 days a week, 12, 14-hour days to build your career, he goes, you don't deserve, Jack, fill in the blank. Now get the heck out of my home. And he didn't say heck. I left with my tail between my legs, tears welling up in my eyes because out of frustration, more probably about myself than anything else. But that speech changed my career because in the morning, I decided to try this thing that he's been preaching for years called hard work, 24 years old. And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to grind it out. And was literally what allowed me to really just explode in success overnight. And I never looked back because now I knew how to succeed in the business, just outpace my competition. And so I started calling, and I'll never forget, I called Thelma Wells, long since gone. She thinks she was like 82 when I called her. I called Thelma Wells on Sharon Lynn Way in Villa Park. And I said, hi, my name is Chris. I just thought I'd check and see if you thought about selling your home now or maybe in the near future. And there was an audible gasp. She goes, well, you must be the answer to my prayers. And I said, why, yes, I am.
Yes, I
am. And it turned out that she was praying about her new boyfriend who was like 70. And, you know, she was cradle robbing. She was like 82, he was like 75. And
had a girl
about that. Yeah. And anyway, and that she needed to sell this out. And anyway, long story short, I got the listing and it was a great success story that maybe over a glass of wine or beer, I can tell you the full details. But the bottom line is you never know who you're going to run into. And maybe it's only 1 out of 100, but that one person, you're going to be a godsend. Go out there and serve for success, because if you don't do it, somebody else will. And we all know people who are not as honest and trustworthy as you and I. So why allow them to suffer fools because we're too lazy to make calls?
You know, and the good news is it's not 1 out of 100. The odds are much higher than that. You know, it's about what, 11. It's about 12 out of 100 in any one given month.
Yeah,
is looking to do something. So, hey, let me ask you this, a little pivot. So I think everybody gets a clear idea. If you want to make money, man, the phone's just hard to beat. In fact, yeah. I'll go out on a limb and say the phone can't be beat, because God knows I've tried. And I've tried I've tried a lot of
well,
things.
You're the magician, right? I mean, you do things that nobody else does nearly as well. You teach it, and people need to
Well,
follow
I
you.
don't show the things that didn't work. And there's been a bunch of those. And I can tell you, we've tried to beat the phone for probably the last 10 years, and I've yet to beat it yet. But in saying that, is there any technology or any kind of I don't know, I hate using the word tools or widgets, but let's just use technology.
Sure.
Is there
Yeah.
any technology is like, man, if you're trying to sling loans these days, boy, one thing you want to make sure you have is like, and you already mentioned CRM, which by the way, we'll give a shameless plug to Total Expert. That's who we use too. And that's pretty happy with that.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And then of course, Sales Boomerang fully integrated with Total Expert to create journeys so that as soon as one of those Sales Boomerang alerts hit, boom, automatically there's things that start occurring for a few days, just in case our loan officers don't take immediate action. So we set it up knowing that, that loan officers sometimes aren't on top of their leads. So we automatically are doing the text and the communication and prompting them, hey, we remind them, this person just had a mortgage inquiry, for goodness sakes, you need to reach out to them. So for me, look, I'm a huge fan of Barry Habib and his calculators and his little studio that he creates for you is idiot proof. I mean, these are phenomenal tools, from the best in the industry, along with Dave Savage and Mortgage Coach, who's now part of Sales Boomerang. Those are two phenomenal tools. I love Ben over there at Mobility RE. And allowing people in most cases to have full access to the actual MLS, only branding yourself. I mean, there's some phenomenal tools out there. And what we do is we try to fully integrate them with a single sign-on through our single sign-on system, Okta, along with integration into our LOS and to our CRM. So everything becomes seamless. But look, I mean, we're trying lead pops with Andrew Pollock, but, shameless plug back to you. You've given us our own little marketing page, which has a bunch of classes, and you teach us obviously how to market utilizing Google and Facebook. But none of those things are designed to succeed all by themselves in a vacuum. They're designed to augment or supplement what it is that you do. And primarily what we're selling is ourselves, our value proposition, because anybody can sell. I mean, if all you do is reduce yourself to a rate and fee, go work for Quicken. You're commoditizing yourself, and that's just a race to the bottom. But if you truly want to adhere to what Walt Disney said, which is people will spend money when and where they feel good, well, then be that person that makes people feel good. Be that person that proactively reaches out to give holistic solutions, and don't just go for the commission check. Let the people know that your goal is a lifetime of commission checks, and that if you can't refer me to your own mother, I'm letting you down. And all I ask is that you help me become a better loan officer by letting me know this. I'll step up my game and I'll improve, but I need you to make me the best loan officer I can possibly be. And look, by putting myself in the hands of my borrowers and sellers throughout my career has served me very, very well. I'll humble myself and ask them to make me the very best that I can be in my chosen profession.
Is there anything like on your top producers you have over there? Are there any common, other than again, going back to the phone calls, is there anything other than that they seem to have in common, your top producers? Like, is there any one set of activities they do, or one set of copyable proactive activity they take that you see your top producers do that maybe some of the in other companies or other situations, some of you see the lower producers aren't doing?
Okay, so the people that have money and resources will supplement what they do by acquiring leads, financially acquiring leads, and then working to convert those leads aggressively, along with making their calls to their borrowers and the referral partners on a regular basis. But one of the things that I find interesting, and we've talked about this ad nauseum here internally, is we've created a model that one size does not fit all. We're not trying to pigeonhole anybody. We have people that say, I just love Surefire. I just love Total Expert. I just love Blend. I love LO Connect. I love buying leads. I love calling my realtors. So, and all of it works. So if somebody chooses to go down a particular path of acquiring leads and converting the semi line to convert those leads, and they're making 7 figures, fantastic. But that doesn't mean that's going to be the same thing. I mean, there's two top producers that go back and forth here at PRMG on a regular basis. And one is all about acquiring leads and spends a fortune, but makes a fortune because they've created a phenomenal assembly line. And there's another person who spends zero on leads, and it's all about taking care of the referral partners and being religious when it comes to serving those, their past clients, as well as their referral partners, mainly all real estate agents and everything in between. So when I analyze and look at my team, again, I always look at the top 1%, the top 10%, and then I look at the bottom 20%, which we're always trying to coach up or coach out. But the bulk, and it's true no matter what company I think you work for, the bulk of those people, they just need somebody who is willing to figure out a way. And again, I can't motivate you, but I can do my very best to kick in the backside and say that you have value to bring to the consumer, but you're keeping yourself a secret. Let's talk about that. And so that just comes down to, I hate to be repetitive, but that just comes down to, you've got to be proactive in your communication and reach out.
Are you guys in all 50 states, Chris?
Soon to be. The only state that we're not in is New York. That's always everybody's, it's
ours too, by the way.
challenge. Yeah.
Awesome place. Love New York. It's hard to get a ticket there. So, all right. So my question is, are you noticing, like, are any areas of the country seem to be getting, is anybody at a disadvantage depending upon where they live? I guess that's what brought that up is just this morning I was talking to somebody saying, but Carl, it's different here, kind of thing. Are you, and maybe he was right, but are you seeing, since you guys have such a broad overview of the entire United States, do you see any difference in obviously Texas, Florida, and California is going to produce more loans because they have more people than say right. Vermont or Connecticut. But as a general rule, are you seeing any difference throughout the country?
So the short answer is yes. Real estate, we've always known, is hyper local, but our business does not necessarily have to be restricted to that hyper local market. So the first thing I think of when somebody, and I've had those conversations, when somebody says, yeah, but my market is unique. I mean, first off, everybody says their market is unique.
Yeah.
And that's when I start to say, all right, look, the world has become flat by comparison to what it was years ago. With today's technology and with most companies being licensed in multiple states, just simply expand out your circle, make your circle, your radius of where you do business larger. And then look through CoreLogic and many other services, heck, even Mobile Areas MMI data. You can look and see what type of business is being done today, and there's a lot of business being done. This is, if you look at today's market, this is one of isn't this one of the top 5 or 6 markets ever as far as sheer volume goes?
So the latest thing I saw, the most pessimistic was this is the third best ever. That was the most pessimistic. Third best ever. Yeah.
And that's what's so amazing to me, and probably to you as well, is, I kind of am taken back when people are, woe is me. It's like, oh my gosh, compared to what, right? You have no idea what a struggle is. And so let's get off our backside and serve for success. People need you.
You know what I think the bottom line to all this is, we've been, me too, right? We all have. We've been coasting downhill for probably the last 2 or 3 years. And not only we're coasting downhill, we had a 50-mile-an-hour wind at our back. And we're zooming along our huffy bicycle at a speed of about 80 miles an hour, thinking we're Lance Armstrong. And suddenly the wind stops. And we're not going uphill, we're just going flat now. And it feels like we hit a brick wall.
Right.
And I think it's just resetting our mind of, oh, no. I was riding off the Colorado slopes, wind at my back. This is normal. No big deal. I just got to pedal, no big deal. I just got to pedal. So,
well, and look, when people are competing, the competition has always been there. You have the depositories, you have the credit unions, you have the IMBs like myself and you've got the brokers. you know, everybody, if no matter what company you work for, you're always thinking that the competition has a better, shinier object, or at least you're worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, look, if you're one of the top 50 companies out there, like you and I are, I mean, you have all the tools that you need, and everybody goes to the same trough for pricing. So everybody's pricing is going to be within a quarter of each other.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be, obviously, there's going to be the Manishvias of the world who are going to temporarily, obviously, do things that's going to cause a stir, but that's laughable. I mean, it's not sustainable. So never make long-term business decisions based on short-term challenges. So act like you're a CEO of your Fortune 100 company, act as if, and take action. And the action you need to take, obviously, is as hard as you work to obtain, you must work even harder to retain. And if you are first to those people that you retain and you're proactive in communication, you'll build a business. And that business obviously will have predictable data that's going to, predictable results. That is truly a business. And now you have a business with blue sky that you can actually sell to a junior down the road.
Yeah, I've always found consistency out trumps talent every day of the week. Consistency
100%.
out trumps. You can put somebody that's consistent and they're not near as good as somebody with phenomenal talent that does it from every now and then. Man, the consistency will out trump everything else. So,
well,
hey,
that's been a truism for years. We all read Aesop's fables, The Tortoise and the Hare, and I think that's a perfect illustration of the tortoise and the hare.
I have to say though, I'd still rather be the hare. I'm just going to go out there.
Me too.
The hare had a wild day of just absolute fun, and the turtle not so much. So that might not be our best example, because I'd still rather be the hare. But
fair point.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hey, so and I think everybody listening to the podcast for any length of time knows that we do not take sponsors, which I don't. I've never received $1 from this. And no intentions on doing that. And when I bring people on and give endorsements, it's because I think they're just really excellent people at what they do, because it's just the way I run things around here. I have to tell you, man, my hat's off to you guys over there at PRMG. And I know, and I want to be respectful to the other people that are kind enough to turn us on to their loan officers, but dude, you guys are running a class act over there. And it's always a joy when I meet with and talk with some of the people over at your shop. I can just tell you, man, they absolutely love you. They absolutely love what's going on there. Anybody spends any amount of time with you whatsoever can see it's not by chance or by accident that you guys got it really going on. Is there, if somebody wants to talk with you and just get some ideas of some of the technology or some of the different ways that you've seen top loan officers become somebody, is there, I don't know, a website or a phone number or?
Well, I probably, like I said, I know that I'm just launching a my team's launching a little recruiting site under my name, but I don't know what it is yet. I have to get the address. I'll just give myself a number. And look, I'm a huge fan of loyalty, right? So if somebody is loyal to their employer, great, because I do believe that the grass is green where watered. And if you've got a voice and your employer is willing to listen to you and make adjustments, then stay where you are. Give them a chance, obviously, to make their organization a better organization. But look, we all know there's times when people just say, I've had enough. This isn't working for me. And people leave people more than they do companies. And if that's where somebody is, thank you, Carl. I'll just say, if somebody wants to jot down my phone number, my cell is probably the best way to have a confidential conversation. And either myself or my team will make sure that you're well cared for. But my cell is 909-262-0452, 909-262-0452. Had it for 25, 30 years. And, just looking forward to talking to people if it's the right thing for someone to do.
Anything I should have asked you today that I forgot to?
I don't think so. I think both of us, we probably went longer. I'm not sure how much of this will be edited. We went longer than what we probably initially thought. And I just enjoyed talking to you. You are a godsend to the industry, and you are a good man. And there are, there's certain people that I choose to emulate because of their actions more than their words. And you're definitely one of them. So thank you. From an industry professional, I know I speak on behalf of many. We thank you for obviously being a bright light in sometimes a very strange world that we find ourselves participating in.
Well, I appreciate your kind words. So now I feel like I need to write you a check. That box of steaks will be there sometime tomorrow. So, hey, well, thanks a lot. And for those of you listening today, man, put this stuff to good use. It's just, I think that the basic synopsis I'm getting off of this is, man, just do what you know works. This is not a complicated thing. And the consistency will out trump, well, I don't know exactly what to say. I don't know exactly how to say it. Again, you feel free to give Chris a call. You can give us a call over here if you have any issues with like what to say or whatnot. But I'm going to tell you right now, just go out there and do it. How I develop my scripts, it's just by making calls. And the ones that went well, I jotted down, I said this and that went well. And frankly, some of the times they didn't go out nowhere near as well. And I went, man, I will never say that again. Right. And that's just how you learn to do it, And I never forget my dad. One of the great things he told me is he said, son, if you don't skin your knees from time to time, you're not running fast enough. And so if I don't have a bad phone call, man, I'm not making enough calls. And it's just, this is just not complicated stuff to make that much money. I was doing the math the other day, Chris, and I know you're in California, somewhat larger loan amounts, but if let's say somebody's on an average of $3,000 per closing, give or take, somewhere around $3,000 per closing, I figured out the math that they need 4 referred leads per day to make $1 million. 4 a day. That's all we need. 4 a day. We got 8 hours to make that happen. 4 referred leads a day and $1 million. And, I think sometimes we kind of candy coat that a little bit. It's like, dude, $1 million is some serious jack.
Holy smokes, it is. And what type of lifestyle change could that do for somebody? I mean, and what kind of good in the world could you do? I mean,
yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. I know for me, I'd say like when I made my first 100,000, man, it was a big difference from what I came from, man. That was big. It really was. And then I'd say the next step for me was probably 300,000. And the next step that made a difference to me was probably hitting that 7-figure. And I have to say, doing multiples of that, I'm sure you're doing well also, but doing multiples of that, I haven't seen that much of a difference, to be honest with you, off that first, 7-figure paycheck. And it's just not that hard. 4 referred leads a day. So anyway, hey, so be sure to give Chris a call if that's something you'd like to do. Thanks a lot for listening to this. Hey, one thing that we do ask, if you got something that you think would benefit some of your friends that's listening to this, we really appreciate you getting this episode and forwarding it to 3 of your loan officer friends. And as always, we sure appreciate those reviews. That helps get the word out. So thanks again, Chris. You're an awesome dude, brother. Hope to see you at the next Freedom Club meeting in Nashville in November. Would love for you to share with people on our stage. And you're a class act. Love hanging out with you, brother.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Ditto. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.